Here's my turn project. I'm holding it on this stand. This is called a jerry rig, and it's essentially one of these adjustable carving holding devices that I've used elsewhere on the site. We can move the whole thing this way, or we can move it this way, or we can move this way. So I can get at this carving very easily all the way around, because it is quite different from carving in a straight line like this. The profile of my turning, whether it's a bowl, whether it's a box, whether it's a stand like this, is very similar to the one we've used for the straight gadroon, with the difference is that I've made this part here a little bit less shallow. So I've not come so far back here. So it's here, goes round, and not quite so shallow here. And that gives me a different sort of drop here, and probably more classical gadrooning. Anyway, there it is, ready to mark out. And let me show you a few things. I'll tell you a few things about how I mark this circular form out. I started off the marking out in the way I did with the straight gadroon by making a rough sketch of where I thought, or what I thought a nice shaped, nice sized gadroon would look like. And then I worked out how many of those would go in a whole number around this circular form. What I want to show you, the main thing is, it's a little bit tricky. How do you get the divisions on this circular form like this? Well, the easiest way for me is to actually use masking tape, which I go round and all the way around, and I can mark off and get an exact length of the circumference. So this is my circumference, and it goes all the way around and meets again here. So once I knew my circumference, I could divide it up, which I did, and then I could mark out my divisions. Another template. This is a little tricky. I had to do this mainly by eye to get my vertical divisions like this, and then another template here that went from the start of one across this one down to the other like this. So I went all the way around, and I now have marked out all the divisions. So now, having marked them out like that, I'm ready to start carving. One of the important things about a turned piece like this is the grain. So the tree, or the original plank that we use, is in this direction. So the grain is going along here. So at this part, I'm working an end grain, also here. And in this part, I'm working side grain, just as with the moulding, and on the quarters, a little bit different. So we're going to have to look at that as we go along. But let's start as we did before. The carving is exactly the same, except we have to deal with that grain sometimes. So I'm going to choose one of these, and I'm going to get my V tool, and I'm going to decide which side of the line I'm going to go. And we're going to push that along that line like this. So coming in from this top part, on the line and down. Now this is very hard wood, so it'll polish up really nicely. I think that's one of the things about the gadroon, is they look nicely. So it might be that I need to use a mallet at this stage. Now this is wobbling, but with my hand on it and tapping, I don't really see that. The camera will see it, but I won't. So round there, just as before, and over the top. And if you remember, round about here, just at the start of this half circle, half sphere, which is a ball at the end, we're coming more or less vertical here. So I'm going to go around all of them and do that first stage, making this fairly deep. So I've been around with the V tool, and I think you can see them all around here. Some important thoughts here. We want to try and make these equal. In other words, keep the same sweep as we come down and keep the same depth as best we can all the way around. That way we keep the evenness right through to the end. The other thing is I am starting from back here and I'm coming over here as far as I can, and the grain is a little bit tricky. As I said, we've got end grain and so on. So it's really back to that carving principle where you've got two edges cutting at the same time. One might cut with the grain, one might cut against the grain. This is very hard wood, so I've actually been able to go against the grain and still have it keep together. But if you find it's tearing, what you have to do, and this is where having this space here really comes into its own, is you need to reverse that direction for this cut. So come this way and make the good side of the V-tool on the on the piece that's tearing. So there's a degree of backwards and forwards like this. And this will be true in the next stage where we start giving some sort of shape. This is probably not deep enough yet. I'm probably going to go over it again. But that's our first pass, and I'm going to now start taking off, just like I did before, taking off some of this corner here. And it might be that I need to come back this way on this side. So I can take a bit off with a flat chisel, and then I can move to more of a rounded gouge here. I said a flat chisel, I meant a flat gouge, sorry. So take some of that off here. Careful not to bump into this top fillet here. Coming right back here. So I'm going to go round and make a preliminary pass. And we're going to come down to about halfway, and I might need to change to the bigger tool to stop that digging in. So here I can see it's tearing. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but that's tearing. So that means that I'm going to have to be coming back this way, changing the grain, or I'll be putting a slice on the tool like this. So in other words, drifting across. So one way or the other, I'm going to be carving the surface, and it is a gadroon, but it's essentially, it's a carving principle, how we need to work. So let me just start working around these, getting some preliminary shape to them. This is what you want to avoid doing, digging the end or the corner of this tool into the wood here. So don't do that. Okay, so now I've gone round once. It's still not deep enough. So I'm going to go around a second time with my V tool and open this up a bit more. So push this. And you find this a little bit easier now because we've got some of the wood taken away. So again, starting here, I'm going to run this round like this. And here's an opportunity. If I think one of these is a little wider than this one, I can tweak this a little bit to one side, make this a little bit narrower. So there can be a little bit of tuning of the gadroons as we go along. So having run that round there, I will repeat exactly as I did before with the rounded tools, and I'll try and round them over right up to this change of plane where it drops over. So I've come right the way over to here, after which it'll start into the end of the ball. So I might need to do this 3 times, whatever, but I'm going to quietly work my way around and just push that back a little bit more so I get more shadow in. I've been around the carving 3 times. We're probably a couple of hours on now, so I've taken my time. I've tried to make this fairly rounded here. An important point is that this top surface here is in fact the original surface of the wood. So although I've come across and joined, I really don't want to do more than just skim this surface, because this is the actual profile that's equal on each of them. So don't undulate this, just meet, if anything, very lightly at the top. I brought the cuts through down here. A tricky bit is up in this corner here, because this fillet here gets in the way, but you can use your skew chisel either coming down like this way with the heel, or coming up this way like this, and you can do some bit of shaping with the skew chisel at this very tip here. So the next thing to do is to, now I've got some depth in there, is to sharpen those up just as we did before, with a stab cut that comes down all the way into that root, and then an angle up this side, and taking off that tiny little bit of the shaving down here. And that gives a really sharp line here. So we go around and do that, and then we're ready to start working on the ends. Actually, while I've got this tool in my hand, what I can do is take out the little top parts of the small end. I've drawn it in here. You're just going to take a very small little triangular cut here by following this curve around, like so. And we can follow this one as well. Then pick up that there with the corner, and this one. And then take out a little triangular chip in here. Adjust that one a little bit. So this is coming over there, this is coming over here, and round into there. So this tail actually runs back up to the fillet, so we need to make sure that line runs right back there and joins in. So it's not undercut, it's just a little bit of a separation, and this drops down into there. And if necessary, I can get my skew chisel and just tidy that up a little bit. So a nice sharp line coming up and over onto the next one. Yeah. What we have to do is make a half sphere around this end here. So the actual surface of the sphere is here, but it's going to come around into these grooves like that. Now if you can see the underside of this wood here a bit, the grain is actually coming this direction like this. What that means is sometimes I'm going to be going with the grain like that, but sometimes I'm going to be fighting against it. So we're going to have to work this gouge in different ways in order to sort of get that roundness. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a stab cut, some sort of curved gouge that just makes that groove down there. Just cut that down into here a little bit. So I'm not going to stab into this bottom bit, and I just want to relieve a little bit of pressure there when I go through. So just a little bit there. Then let's do this one here. Coming over, I'm going to be, this is going with the grain here, so I'm slicing like so. Make sure that's tight. Again, I need my mallet. This is a very hard piece of wood. So these in this direction is fairly easy because it's with the grain. So take some of that out like that. And this line of this tool has got to come around one side and up and join that line that goes in between. So it's coming around here and up. And on this side, I'm going against the grain, but I'm slicing it like this. Very carefully slicing to get most of it away. If I just hit it with a mallet, I'd splinter a whole bit away. So I'm sort of, see, as I do this in this direction, with the slice, I'm actually going with the grain. See how that's... So I'm sort of going with the grain even as I come down. I'm going to come down here on this side. Down this side like this. I'll do this one as well. And then I can take a little bit of this wood away here. How things are going. And this time I'm going with the grain to take that off and merging with this quirk here. Take that off there. Now sometimes I'm going to have to come up like this, sometimes I'm going to come down like this, sometimes I'm going to come across like this, but as much as I can, if I can slice it, I get a nice clean surface. And at the end, what I want to do is I want to come down and stab the ground here when it meets a quirk and bring that around. So what I've got is the sweep of the tool producing a really nice curve. So I've got a nice sharp line there, because a gadroon is all about lines. So this line has to come around here and up there, around here and up there like this. So I'm going to just work my way around one at a time. I'm not undercutting. I'm getting a nice clean edge there, and I'm making sure that picks up and goes up there. So the gadroons are finished. It is a tricky bit of carving. One of the main things you can do is not take too big a piece of wood off at one time. Check the direction and change so you're always going with the grain. So it'll take a bit of time to work this out. But we're ending up with a really nice overhang here, nice fluid lines. So I think it's a very attractive little swirly piece. So all that's left now is to sand it. So these need sanding to really bring out that sort of beautiful shape. So you can start with, again, something like 120 perhaps, work your way up to 180, 240, so we get a fine finish on these surfaces. And don't forget, to use a dust mask. Really important. You don't want to be breathing in this sort of dust as you're working. Okay, so let's start sanding. Well, it's been a couple of hours that I've spent sanding. It's quite tedious, but as you can see, getting this lovely smooth line, that's really quite important. Anyway, the carving's now finished, and you could wax this or use some sort of UV varnish, the usual sort of way of finishing. I'm going to leave this just as the wood, and yeah, I rather like it.